I hand over to regarding actually Dr. Purvi Mehta is an international developmental professional with over 28 years of experience across Asia, Africa, North America. Currently, Dr. Mehta serves as a senior advisor to the Global Center for Adaptation and the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, the world's largest climate adaptation program. So, Dr. Devendra Kumar is our co-chair. He serves as Deputy Director General, Crop Science as ICAR. Dr. Yadava is associated with brassica breeding for more than 29 years and has revolutionized brassica breeding and seed system in India. He has contributed in development of 24 varieties, which include 21 of mustard and three of pulses. So I request Chair to take over the session. Over to you. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for that introduction and thank you for all the great coordination that you've done for this session. It's a very, very important session because I think it focuses on the theme of this conference, which is around science. And Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, we really thank you for bringing in science at the center stage of this celebration. This is extremely important because yes, as we celebrate Professor Swaminathan, as we celebrate India's green revolution and its success, we are also talking about what next and how do we extend this to an evergreen revolution by bringing in more commodities, by bringing in more sectors, bringing in more number of farmers and more number of states within this. So science stays at a center of this. For me personally, this session, which focuses on ICT application, has a very special personal meaning. About 24 years ago, when Professor Swaminathan made one of his first presentations at the Prime Minister's office, talking about when nobody was talking about, when he spoke about creating a weather prediction system, a digital weather prediction system in this country, I was one of the people who was with him in that room. What felt at that time like a far-fetched dream of a digital system for the farmers only about 24 years ago is becoming a growing reality currently, and increasingly smallest of the smaller farmer has been starting to use these as decision-making tools in their farms, whether it is in the production or whether it is in the pest management or weather prediction and so forth. So this session has a very, very special meaning from that perspective. Cell phones, I always say, has become the most powerful farming equipment, the most versatile one and the most powerful one for a farmer. This session is about how do we leverage upon some of these tools, how do we optimize on AI, on IoT, on precision agriculture for smallest of the smaller farmer. The speaker today, the keynote speaker today, Dr. Ranveer Chandra is a world-renowned person on this one, not only from a technology development side, but also from a technology deployment side, which for this country, especially Ranveer, is so important. So may I say welcome back to you as you come back to your country, Ranveer, and address this. I think as we talk about deployment, Dr. Yadav, what will be very, very important for us for impact at scale is one, affordability of technology, access to the technology, and the ultimate goal of any technology that we bring should be on how a farmer can optimize his or her resources, whether it is natural resources like soil and water and so forth, how a farmer can increase productivity, but at the same time, how a farmer can increase profitability, because we all know that increasing productivity by default does not increase a farmer's profitability. and therefore market-related technologies and deployment of technologies into that part of the value chain also will be equally important. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the keynote address, and looking forward to my co-chair, Dr. Yadava.
Good evening. In continuation to my colleague, co-chair, Dr. Purvi, I'll be introducing the today's speaker at this very good occasion, as well as the topic which he has selected. So, regarding Mr. Ranveer Chandra, he is currently the Vice President of Microsoft 365, copilot and Chief Technology Officer of the Agri-Food at Microsoft. Previously, Dr. Chandra has held various leadership roles, including the Managing Director for Research for Industry, Chief Scientist of Microsoft Azure Global, and Head of Networking Research at Microsoft Research, Redmond. His research has shipped in multiple Microsoft products, including Xbox, Azure, and Windows. He is the inventor of Microsoft FarmBeats, Big Data, AI, Cloud, and Edge for Agriculture, which is a Microsoft product and is being used by multiple agri-food companies. FarmBeats was featured by Bill Gates on Gates Notes, and he has been invited to present to the Secretary Agriculture and on TV white spaces to the FCC chairman. Dr. Chandra has published more than 100 papers and holds over 120 patents globally granted by the USPTO. He is an IEEE Fellow and ACM Fellow and has won several awards, including the MIT Technology Review's Top Innovations Under 35, IIT Kharagpur Distinguished Alumni Award, and was recognized by the Newsweek magazine as America's 50 most disruptive innovators. Dr. Chandra has an undergraduate degree from IIT Kharagpur, India, and a PhD Computer Science from the Cornell University. As has been mentioned by the co-chair, that today it is the era of digitalization, and when we are talking about the predictive breeding, if we talk of the crop breeding, animal and fish breeding, and use of the AI and ML, so definitely this type of innovations which I think are of very practical use in the overall productivity enhancement across the various commodities, and seeing the future challenges, the climate change, and our targets for the 2047, and as in the morning our Honorable Prime Minister has highlighted regarding the use of the technology. So I think Mr. Ranveer Chandra's lecture will be very useful, and as the selection of the topic, selection of the speakers, overall if we see in the overall the program, so that is very excellent, and I hope all of us will be benefited by the very distinguished speaker in today's evening. Thank you very much, and I welcome Mr. Ranveer Chandra for his lecture.
Thank you, Purvi and Dr. D.K. Yadava for the introduction. It's an honor to be here, to be speaking at the 100th year anniversary, the celebrations of Professor Swaminathan. He's had such an immense impact on all of us. And like Purvi said, the kind of things we are doing, he had envisioned long back when he envisioned the future of agriculture. So talking about myself, I am Ranveer Chandra. By training, I am not an agriculture scientist. I'm a computer scientist by training. I did my PhD in computer science from Cornell. But growing up, I spent a lot of time in my grandparents' farms. I grew up in Jamshedpur, but every summer and winter vacation, as it happens, and many of you over here can relate to it, I used to spend in my grandparents' farm. My grandparents used to live close to Bhagalpur in Bihar. So, we used to take multiple trains and take a bus and then a tum-tum, the horse carriage, to get to that farm. So 4 months every year, we used to be in this farm close to Bhagalpur. Back then, I did not like anything to do with agriculture and farming. These villages, they were remote. They did not have any electricity. They did not have any toilets. We were 3 brothers and a sister, and that's how we would spend 4 months every year. It wasn't the thing I was looking forward to. But that said, I have witnessed extreme forms of poverty, very primitive forms of agriculture, things like hand-based seeding, bullock-driven tractors. And that, in particular, this is in India, so you'll probably relate to this. I remember one of the things which has been etched in my memory is my mom would do the prayers and leave the offerings outside our house, and there would be a swarm of kids waiting to grab something to eat. So even though I have done my PhD in computer science, ever since I joined Microsoft, that's one thing that has been on my mind, is how do I take the innovations that we are doing and take it to every farmer anywhere in the world? And that has been the driving force behind the work you listen to today. So next slide, please. So, and you can click again before you get to the next slide. So our goal here is much more than what I talked about, my personal passion about impacting every farmer everywhere in the world. The world has a food problem. We need to grow more food to feed the growing population of the world. By some estimates, it's 50%. It's not just about growing more food, it's about growing good food, more nutritious food. And we need to grow this more nutritious food, even though the amount of arable land is not increasing, the soils are not getting any richer, the water levels are receding. So the key question then is, how do we sustainably nourish the world? How do we grow this more nutritious food without harming the planet? If you go to the next slide. So our key mission, one of the things that we think can help us get there is this concept of a data and AI-driven agri-food system. What we mean by that is if every entity in the agriculture and food supply chain, all the way from input companies to agronomists to seed companies, farmers, logistics companies, food processors, even the consumer, if every entity starts to use data and AI, it leads to new efficiencies throughout the supply chain. Like, for example, I don't know how many of you read Purvi's article that was in the Hindustan Times today, which talked about how we need to be not just farming more, but farming smarter. What this means is, it's not just the farmer, but every entity in the agriculture and food supply chain needs to be making smarter decisions about what to farm, when to sell, and so on. And it doesn't just stop there. It's not about just every entity. If every entity could start sharing this data across the entire agriculture and food supply chain, it leads to new efficiencies. It leads to new business models. Things like track and trace, sustainability, nutrition. Now, when I talk to people about this, people say, well, blockchain kind of solves this problem. The thing is, blockchain only solves a very small part of the problem. The bigger problem that we have to address is, what do you put in the blockchain? How do you do hands-free digitization of the entire agriculture and food supply chain? Things like, for example, if you're going outside and eating an apple, where was this apple grown? How was it grown? How much water did it consume? Did it use child labor? How long was it stored? When did it get here? All of this information needs to be carried with every produce. And that is the future where we are headed. We go to the next slide. So in this talk, I'll focus just on agriculture, like just that farmer piece. So, with one of the things that the digital agriculture, this data-driven agriculture could enable, is you could map any farm anywhere in the world and overlay it with data. Like, for example, here, you could overlay it with what is the soil moisture level, 6 inches below the surface throughout the farm. What is the soil temperature level, the soil nutrient level? If you could build maps like this, it could enable techniques like precision agriculture, which you all know very well about, right? So with precision agriculture, you could apply inputs only where it is needed, water where it is needed. And precision agriculture as a technique has been shown to improve yields, decrease It has been shown to reduce costs because you use less chemicals, you use less inputs. It's also better for the environment for the same reasons. You're not wasting water, you're not putting in more chemicals than are needed. If you go to the next slide, the thing is, even though precision agriculture as a technique was proposed back in the 80s, we're talking of 40 years back in the day, the technique is still in its infancy in adoption. It's not because scientists haven't shown how good the technique is. The biggest challenge is the cost of these data-driven agriculture solutions. Like, just to put this in perspective, when I started this work, I'm a computer scientist by training, right? A funny incident, by the way, here is when I started this program back in Microsoft in 2014 is when I wrote the memo. I was like, I need to work with someone who knows agriculture. So like, I went to IIT Kharagpur. IIT Kharagpur was the only IIT with an agriculture department. I'll go find someone who understands agriculture. But everyone in the agriculture department in my batch was doing IT, tech. No one was doing agriculture anymore. I went going up and up in previous batches. Finally, there were two mentors of mine, one from a 1971 batch, another from the 1972 batch. One is a professor at UC Davis and another one is at USDA. And they helped me with all the coaching and so on. And then one of the things that I realized is that, even though precision agriculture has been, the techniques have been invented, it's really costly. Like when I went to UC Davis to meet one of my mentors once, there was an expo going on. Several companies were presenting their latest and greatest precision ag equipment. And the cheapest sensor package that was available there was 5 sensors for $8,000 at a recurring cost. At which point, which farmer is going to spend that much money? What's the ROI? And USDA confirmed this in a recent study. At the bottom, you're seeing a McKinsey study from 2022 with the same exact findings, that the biggest reason these digital technologies haven't been deployed is the cost of these digital agriculture solutions. So that's what set us right when we started this project was our key mission is to democratize data and AI-driven agriculture. The thing that drives me is to get any farmer anywhere in the world to benefit from data and AI. That is, when I started this project, I started thinking about it in 2010, we started in 2015. I went and volunteered in multiple farms in the US, not here, but in the US. What I realized was that, every farmer, they know a lot about the farm. They've been farming there for several years, sometimes decades, generations. Despite the fact that they've been doing that, they know, there was one farmer close to Microsoft campus, he would feel the soil and say what's going on. There was a farmer in upstate New York I was working with, he would taste the soil and say what's going on. They know a lot. But the thing is, even though they know a lot about the farm, a lot of decisions they make is based on guesswork. Like when to water, when to harvest, when to irrigate, when to fertilize. All of these decisions are based on guesswork. So our vision with all of this, with AI, is not to replace a farmer, but to augment a farmer's knowledge with data and AI. Remove guesswork and replace guesswork in a farmer's life with data and artificial intelligence, and do it in a way which is democratized, at a price point which benefits every farmer. So one of the first things we looked at when we started looking at, okay, how do you make it available to everyone? One of the first challenges that we had to address was connectivity in the farm. A lot of times when you plant the seeds, there might be connectivity in the farm. By the time the crops grow, the connectivity is gone. So to address this problem, one of the techniques that I have been looking at was, how do you bring internet connectivity to every farmer anywhere in the world? Just to give you a statistic, right now in the world, over 2 billion people in the world still don't have internet access, something that we take for granted. How can we talk of data and AI-driven agriculture when the farmer doesn't have internet? So one of the first solutions that we looked at was this thing called TV white spaces. So the idea was simple. Imagine if you have your Wi-Fi and you can access it even a mile away. Right now, as soon as you exit your building, your Wi-Fi disappears. The way we did that was we took a Wi-Fi signal and we put it in an empty TV channel. You know the TV you watch using antennas? A lot of people are young here, they won't get it. But we used to watch it. People still watch TV with antennas. And the thing is, when you browse through TV, these channels, on certain channels you got a transmission, the other channels, all you got was white noise, just nothing coming there. The tech we built was a way to take a Wi-Fi signal and put it in these noisy TV channels in a way that doesn't interfere with your TV reception in an adjacent channel. So you could be watching channel 7 at home. On channel 8, we could be sending Wi-Fi signals. And the reason this is so cool is that compared to Wi-Fi, at the same power level, in UHF TV channels, your signals go 4 times farther. In VHF, they go 12 times farther. This is purely based on physics. Once you put in trees, crops, canopies, your signals just keep going through. And the interesting thing about this idea was that TV towers are where people are. You'll have TV towers in Seattle, in Delhi. The farms are typically away from the cities. Because these farms are away from the cities, when you turn on TV, most of the channels are just white. There's nothing coming in those TV channels. The more empty TV channels there are, the more capacity there is. So even if there are 20 TV channels available, so I was giving this talk at the National Corn Growers Association in the US, and there was a lady farmer from Kansas who raised her hand and said, I only get 2 TV channels in my house, the rest are all empty. The more empty channels there are, the more capacity there is. This is unused capacity in the middle of a farm, which at that point, you could be sending not just IoT data from sensors, you could be sending data from drones, cameras, tractors, all of that information from the middle of the farm. We looked at many other ways to bring connectivity in the middle of a farm too. One of the things we did was we launched 6 different satellites. This was really low-cost satellites to connect farms in different parts of the world. But the key takeaway here is that in order to bring data and AI-driven agriculture to farms, the number one problem we need to address is that of connectivity. In India, people say, Geo has blanketed connectivity everywhere. Well, if you go to the middle of a farm, often the connectivity is very poor, and especially if you start putting things in the farm itself, the connectivity is even worse. So we need to look at new, innovative ways to bring internet connectivity to the middle of a farm. You can go to the next slide. So actually, I'm using the slides from last week. There was a TED talk I was giving, so I didn't cover connectivity, but I'll cover the rest in today's talk. So the next challenge to bring down the cost of these data and AI-driven agriculture solutions is that of, I talked about we want to build maps like this. Suppose I took you to a farm and I asked the question, what's the soil nitrogen level or soil carbon level throughout the farm? Or what is the soil moisture level 6 inches below the surface throughout the farm? If we ask soil scientists this question, they say, if you want to build an accurate map, you would need a sensor every 10 meters. But putting a sensor every 10 meters is expensive to deploy, to manage. It'll come in the way of the farmer as the farmer does the day-to-day job. So what is the state of the art? The state of the art, which everyone does, is they'll take soil samples. Once every few acres, you'll get a soil sample, get it tested in the lab, and then what you're going to do, you're going to use this Craiging's method. Basically, it says if this is X, this is Y, everything in between is between X and Y. And this technique is known to be very inaccurate. So instead, what we did, if you go to the next slide, the question we asked is, can you build a map like that using very few sensors? The key idea that we had was that of multimodal AI. When you hear about artificial intelligence in agriculture, artificial intelligence is only as good as the data. And because you have very sparse data in agriculture, just using that sparse data won't give you good, high-quality AI. So instead, what we had to do was come up with multimodal AI. Where what we mean by that is use different modalities of data and combine them to come up with maps like this. This is just one example. For example, here what we did was, suppose you have a piece of land. We'll get data, either we fly a drone and get the data. If you don't, I saw a bunch of posters on multi and hyperspectral imagery. Those will be that kind of data that you get. If you don't have drones, one of the other things we came up with, this is still in research, was an idea to use a helium-filled balloon. If you watch Bill Gates' video in the farm we took him, you'll see him carrying a video, which is like the key idea was simple. If you can't fly a drone and you want imagery of a farm, you get a helium-filled balloon, like 4 to 5 feet in diameter. What we built was a weatherproof mount where the farmer can put their smartphone with the camera facing down and a battery pack attached to it. This thing is tethered to the ground, goes up 150 to 200 feet, and that can keep taking images of the farm throughout. And in places like India, where labor is inexpensive, someone could just walk around with a balloon, and then we used AI to build these kind of maps that you're seeing in the second picture here. Now, one challenge compared to balloons with drones is, drones, your camera is stabilized. With a balloon, it moves around with wind. Your camera is not always facing down. So we have to solve that problem with AI. But if you don't have drones or balloons, what we use is satellite imagery to get images like that. Once you get an image, like the panoramic overview you're seeing, what we do is we use AI again to figure out what are the right places to sample in a farm. Suppose I want to build a soil moisture map, a soil pH map. What are the places to sample? Once you sample those points, what we do is wherever you have a sample and you have the aerial imagery, the RGB multispectral value, we use that to build the model, and then we use that build model to predict these values in other parts of the farm. We wrote this paper back in 2017, and then that was the first time this was presented, and we showed that compared to Craiging's, what is used right now, this technique can give you 3 times more accurate maps. We did it then for soil temperature, soil moisture, soil pH, and right now we've extended it to others as well, soil nutrients, soil carbon, and other such properties as well. If you go to the next slide. And we didn't only stop there. So this has been going on for some time. We've actually, as of 3 months back, we completely open sourced the entire, over 65 different workflows of different modalities of data that could be combined to create this high quality AI. Like, for example, I talked about using sensor data with drone imagery. Another one we did was using sensor data with weather station data to do very microclimate predictions of what's happening in the farm. In another work, what we did was we combined drone imagery with satellite imagery. Drone gives you very high-res data, and satellite imagery gives you very low-res data but more frequent data. So how do you combine them to create high-res imagery? There are over 65 different workflows. I would encourage you, if there are academics, if there are researchers in the audience, if there are startups in the audience, to go try this out. It's on GitHub. It's completely open source. There are over 65 different workflows. This is it's got lots of stars. That's the way people measure how popular it is. So it's quite popular in the agriculture space, especially in the Western world. Would love for people to try it out here in India as well, where you could do things with this repository on things like what-if analysis. Like, what if I planted this crop? Or what if I applied this fertilizer? How is it going to impact my yields? Those kind of things you can start answering using the models here. Of course, this is the science behind it. A lot of the computer, this is a tech behind it. Now, in this, you can start inserting your models. A lot of the innovations that I heard about today or saw in the posters outside, you could start integrating all of that and start building your own models using this framework, this multimodal framework. This is called farmvibes.ai, FARMVIBES. If you just go to FarmVibes GitHub, on GitHub, you'll see the repo, and would love for you all to try it out. If you go to the next slide. So, when we talk about AI, one of the other things that you all would love to listen about, so I've been working on this for 10 years. The first thing we did was we built a data platform saying, how do I get all the data of a farm in one place? That was the starting point, using connectivity, edge compute, all of that. The next thing we did on top of that is using multimodal AI, we were able to take the data and convert it to insights. Like, for example, it's not just weather station data, but I can now start making microclimate weather predictions as well. But that itself was not enough. The question we asked was, how do we take it to every farmer anywhere in the world? How do I convey the insights to a grower? For that, this was post-ChatGPT, the big moment happened, and we were like, ChatGPT is impacting just this generative AI is impacting every industry. And then we started looking at how is it going to impact agriculture as well. So my team then looked at different personas in the agriculture space, all the way from a farmer to a banker to a policymaker to a supply chain person to a scientist. And we looked at how is AI, generative AI, going to transform each of these stakeholders in the agriculture and food value chain. And we have the numbers behind it as well. That is, how will the business change and so on. We're looking at it from a global perspective. But we saw that this is going to be super disruptive. And I'll talk about a few of those use cases. If we go to the next slide. So one of the first things we did is what you're seeing here. We took for any farm, what we did was, for any polygon, a polygon could be a farm, a field, a plot. We gathered all the data for that polygon in one place. That includes data from satellites, from sensors, from drones, from cameras, everything in one place. And then we store it in a common data model. This was what Project Farm Beats was. That is, we did this for all of Washington State. For all of Washington State, we were monitoring different farms. For each farm, we would create this, what we call the farm context. We would capture all the data of the farm and store it in one place. If you click once again. So then the next thing we did is just the data by itself is not good enough. What we then did is for every polygon, which could be a farm, a plot, we convert it into farm context. That is, if I get all the data from tractors and everything else, how do you extract the farm context, which includes things like what has the farmer planted, what is the variety that they planted, what is the date of chemical application. All of that stuff is what is stored in the farm context. If you click again, then when a user asks a question, this is the way you would go and ask ChatGPT a question, right? You would go and say, tell me what's happening in my farm. We take that query, and to that query, we augment all the other information. Like, this is a farm in Baramati, in Maharashtra. This farmer has planted sugarcane at this date. The irrigation has applied on this date. All of that now becomes a bigger prompt that we then give to a large model. In this case, we grounded it on all the data from USDA. We took data from USDA for the last, I think, 15, 20 years, and we grounded it on that data, and then we started returning the information to the grower. If you could click again. So this was the entire, if you think of it, the entire agriculture pipeline for generative AI. You could start doing it for any farm here. You have an ICAR plot. You could bring that plot in. For that plot, you could put in all the data that is needed so that any scientist or any policymaker could say, for this plot, tell me what happened at this time or what is likely to happen, those kind of things. So one of the other things we did, so 2 years back, I was actually in World Agri-Tech, which is one of the big agriculture technology conferences in the world in San Francisco. There was a venture capitalist who was there, a VC. He came to me and he said, hey, can AI pass agriculture exams? So we said, okay, you know what, let me try to do that. People have been doing that for medicine. I said, okay, let's see if AI can pass agriculture exams. So the first exam we took is what you're seeing on your top left. This is the Certified Crop Advisor exam. Any person in the US who has to be a certified agronomist has to pass the CCA exam, the Certified Crop Advisor exam. So we took generative AI and we built the entire pipeline again using ensemble techniques. And as you can see with GPT-4, it got 93% grades in that exam, which was way above the pass grades for becoming an agronomist in the US. We took that exam for Embrapa in Brazil, which you're seeing on the top right. These were long-form questions. The CCA exam was multiple choice. In Embrapa was long form. And as you can see here, GPT-4 with the ensemble techniques and all, we got 84% grades. We took the exam in India. This was the exam, the agri exam. Here, GPT-4 got 79% grades, while the number one human got 78% grades. So you can see, now this is a paper that we published, you can go read about it. But then the question was, can the AI be a powerful agronomist assistant? So I put this on LinkedIn. And I got two sets of responses. One set of responses came from the agronomists themselves. They're like, passing an exam doesn't mean that AI can be an agronomist. I was like, completely correct. We are not saying it can replace an agronomist, but it could be a very powerful agronomist assistant. But the second set of likes I got and comments I got came from farmers, in fact, some from India, where they were like, whenever I talk to an agronomist, I don't get an unbiased opinion. Every agronomist is giving me a different opinion about what I should be doing in my farm. So then I went back to the venture capitalist and said, why did you ask us to do this? He was like, what you're building could be a very powerful second opinion for farmers. That is, farmers can now use. Like, such an agronomist assistant can be on 24/7, can be helping you. And, you still might need human validation. Like, you could have things like, an AI assistant, an AI agent that is running all the time for a farmer. A farmer asks a question, you get, say, a single take if it is not human verified, and double take if it is human verified. But there are multiple business models that can be built once you start thinking of an AI agronomist. If you click again, but AI still makes mistakes. So once we did this is, like for example, in the India exam, this was one of the questions, who is the advocate of the Marthandam Rural Development Program? The AI did not know the answer to this question, so it made an intelligent guess. It said, this is a question from the India exam, so must be an Indian. The only Indian in the list was Mahatma Gandhi, so it says Mahatma Gandhi. It wasn't Mahatma Gandhi, it was Spencer Hatch. So it makes these kind of mistakes. So we said, okay, you know what? AI by itself is great, but what if we could customize AI for agriculture? What if we take the agriculture documents and fine-tune these models? So take these large AI models and tune it so that it becomes agriculture specific. So we wrote this paper, the first paper on fine-tuning GPT-4 for any domain, and we did it for agriculture. If you go to the next slide, we actually fine-tuned it and did it for not just, there are multiple things, like, if you use GPT-4, it's a language model, then there are reasoning models which start thinking as well. So thinking as a farmer would. Because, one of the biggest problems I see with agriculture right now, with digital agriculture, when people build these tools, is they build the tools based on all the data on the internet. They don't take into account what a farmer is going through. Like, for example, a farmer might be under debt. A farmer might have kids to send to school. There are a lot of decisions that they have to include in the AI to help give that answer. So how do you customize this AI so that you can start thinking like the farmer could think? So that's one of the things that we're building. So if you go to the next slide, so this is, for example, if you keep clicking, this is its thinking, and it thought for multiple times before it came back with that response. So if you could go to the next slide, so we are building a lot of things in this agriculture space where we are customizing these large models for, one of the first things was for the agricultural domain, but the new thing we are working on is customizing it to a personal or an enterprise level. Imagine like, Bayer or PepsiCo or that way, or even to every farmer level. What does the farmer level GPT look like? So that's one of the things we are doing. One of the other work we did, the vision that we have is what is the future of these AI models for agriculture, is in the cloud, this is what you'll see. That is, on the top, you'll see large models, like these trillion parameter models that are customized for agriculture, fine-tuned for agriculture, so they are grounded. They give the correct answers. They think like an agronomist or an agriculture scientist would. But we also have multiple small models. These small models could be region-specific, like in India or Latin America. It could be crop-specific, like wheat, corn, or whatever. For different crops, you could have these small models. The other thing we do in the cloud is we maintain what you're seeing at the bottom of this is this farm context. For every farm that you're monitoring, be it in Haryana, Rajasthan, Brazil, wherever it is, you store them in a polygon and store all the context corresponding to that particular farm in the cloud. If you click again, and then what would be running in every farm, or it could be running in a KVK, it could be running in a tractor, this box that you're seeing here on the edge would be running locally. Essentially what this does is it has the farm context for the farms that you're managing. For example, a KVK is only managing, say, farms near Baramati in Gujarat. You would have all the details of all the farms there and customized models for that particular location. So when a farmer asks a question, it would then take from speech, translate it to text, figure out how to ground it, pick the right model. It will find the answer, convert it back from text to speech, and give the answer back out to the farmer or the agronomist or any agriculture stakeholder, banker or whoever. If you go to the next slide. So, we've been doing this stuff for multiple years now, and one of the things we did was in the US, there was this farmer, there's a 5th generation farmer I work with, his name is Andrew Nelson. He's a computer science undergrad. He was, but then he decided to go back to farming in his farm. Just 2 weeks back, there was a Wall Street Journal article where he and I were quoted. His farm was showcased in that particular article. So we worked with him to say, you've been using AI and data for some time. Tell me how much benefit did you get from all of this? This farmer is not your typical India farmer. He's a farmer. He farms 7,000 acre plus of wheat and canola. And we walked through him through different stages of farming, all the way from pre-planting to planting to post-planting, emergence. If you keep clicking to the next one, the pre-emergence and post-emergence, harvest and post-harvest, if you go back. So, through all of these stages in these slides, and I can share the slides with anyone who's interested, or just message me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to provide you these details, where here he talks about all the different technologies that he's used in the farm. If you go to the next slide, and some of the benefits he saw, one, for example, for one particular chemical, which was a huge amount, he needed 38% less chemical in his farm. There was a particular part of the farm where he could double the yield. He could also increase 18% more storage, grain storage, post-harvest as well, using some of these data and the AI technologies that I'm talking about. If you go to the next slide. And it's not just there. Like, one of the things we started was in India. 2 years back, I was here in Baramati. That's why I've been mentioning that. So Mr. Sharad Pawar, he was hosting me in Baramati. There was this Krushik. He invited me to be the chief guest of the event. And while I was on stage, I was talking like this, and I had seen all the facilities there, and I said, there's everything here to build a farm of the future for smallholder farmers in India. So Mr. Sharad Pawar, he was speaking after me, and he picked it up. He was like, we need to build a farm of the future. And over 2 years, they took that farmvibes.ai code that I talked about. This was a partnership with Oxford University Agriculture Development Trust and an implementation partner, Click to Cloud. They came in as well, and we built this entire thing. And we showed, like, over the 2 years, they built for sugarcane, and this is the article that was published. You can go read it. But there we talk about how this led to 40% increase in yield, 20% reduction in input costs, post-harvest, there was, I think it was 12% reduction, 8% reduction in water use. So there are multiple benefits in AI. And when we showcased it, actually, I got the lady farmer who was there to come see Satya. Satya was here in Delhi in January, and in his keynote, his whole hero story was this particular story of this farmer and what we are doing in Baramati. And we got the lady farmer to come meet Satya here as well. We worked with the World Bank. The World Bank visited the site. We are actually replicating that in a few places in UP as well, and UP and I think in Haryana as well. That part I'm not sure. But we are actually replicating what we did there in other parts here. But the key takeaway here, this was a challenge for us. That is, if you ask me about data and AI-driven agriculture, I think as a business, we know how it would work in the developed world. If you look at in the US, in Europe, we know how the business would work. For smallholder farmers, even though we've shown that it can work, there is still work to be done to make it into a viable business, because it's not just a business problem. It's a business problem, it's a policy problem, and a technology problem, everything together. But the results that we got in Baramati was extremely positive. If you go to the next slide, so you could click through this. So, I talked about different things around data and AI-driven agriculture and how it could transform farming. I wanted to end with one vision that what we are working on, which I think could truly transform data-driven agriculture. So, initially I started by talking about how sensors are still very expensive. they still cost $1,000 or more, and most farmers won't pay $1,000, especially smallholder farmers in India and other places. The farmers, they won't spend $1,000 for a sensor in the farm, but many of the farmers, they have a smartphone, even if it is an inexpensive smartphone, even if it's an Android phone. If they have a smartphone, it has a Wi-Fi chipset in it. If it has a Wi-Fi chipset in it, then the key idea we had was if you could measure the time of flight of a Wi-Fi signal. The time of flight of the Wi-Fi signal depends on the permittivity of the material. This is just physics. If the soil is moist, it will take longer to traverse the same distance. But the thing is, this time is of the order of nanoseconds, which makes it really hard to measure. So then the key insight that we had was that most of these Wi-Fi chipsets, they have multiple antennas. So instead of measuring the absolute time of flight, you could measure the relative time of flight, and that became a tractable problem. So we published this paper. It got an award in one of the top-tier computer science conferences. We showed it to Bill Gates. In fact, the title of his Gates Notes blog was, "Can the Wi-Fi in the phone help feed the world?" I was actually presenting this at the National Academies in the US. This was just pre-COVID, and one of the people in the audience was Professor Ratan Lal. He's won the World Food Prize, and Professor Lal, when he was like, if you could measure soil moisture in EC, we could use it to measure soil carbon. So we actually worked with him. We just published that paper end of last year, where we showed that the same Wi-Fi signals, if you combine it with a camera on the phone, you can start using it to measure soil carbon more accurately. So imagine a future where you don't need these sensors in the farm. Anyone with a phone can just walk around, take their phone close to soil, and start getting these measurements. This is still early stage. The intern I worked with, she's a PhD at Yale. She's actually doing a startup on this now. I'm really excited about what comes out of it. But overall, if you go to the last slide, next slide, I'm extremely bullish on a future where we can truly democratize data and AI-driven agriculture, where any farmer, anywhere in the world, including the ones near Bhagalpur that I grew up with who taught me how to bike, they can use data and AI to be more productive, more profitable, and more sustainable. Thank you.
So, because we have some 10 minutes time, so if some query is there, so we can take few questions or queries. Yes, please.
Outstanding presentation, hearty congratulations. This is really eye-opener to me at least, so many others. But my question to you is, if it's tested in a place like Baramati with results clearly on the table, why can't it be replicated in other states? What is preventing us from doing something like this across the country?
Take a few questions and then you can combine maybe. Three more.
Sir, if one more question is allowed, I just would like to, first of all, congratulations Dr. Ranveer for giving an excellent presentation, comprehensive one. In your presentation, in the last phase of your presentation, you were talking about the low-cost sensors. In India, we are having that smallholder agriculture where Government of India is also targeting, Honorable Agriculture Minister is also mainly aiming for that. So with the present cost, we are still facing a lot of difficulty in making it, large-scale adoption. So what is the, any improvement in that particular line on how we are planning, not only technically, but how we can really combine with the government policy of the Government of India and from the Microsoft and other companies, how we can really make a model, a sustainable model, where it can be operative on a large scale and cooperative basis, for which also government is also trying. So this is my just
so one more question, follow up with this sensor, since Sir said there is no standardization as such or accuracy of these sensors. We have been developing many sensors at our university as well, but then there is nobody who talks about accuracy of these sensors, how much data or how much accurate the data which it gives. So maybe if you can just shed some light on that. Thank you.
Myself, Dr. Ajaratnam. Sir, Ranveer sir, I also worked in Bihar, and the Sudha Dairy, which helped you to bring you to the top level. We should be thankful for Sudha Dairy, farmers' cooperative activities. Dr. Professor MS Swaminathan always insisted to me for three things: pro-farmer, pro-women, and then pro-nature. This is what his vision he has said to us. Now, how we can be more cost-effective if used for this your technology in the field? That's what my request to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ranveer, for your comprehensive presentation. So I have two questions actually. One is very general. So what do you see as a key challenges in adopting precision agriculture at scale in India, especially considering our small farmer-dominated farming landscape? And the next question is, could you share your thoughts on the challenges of ground truthing, especially in terms of spatial and temporal resolution? How do we ensure the accurate and scalable data collection to support AI models in the diverse setting like in India actually? Thank you.
So greetings. I have one more question. So you were talking about predictive analysis and those stuff, and how you think AI and IoT can actually solve, the post-harvest losses. Thank you. So,
I think we can take some questions later on because number of please.
And also the adaptability and accessibility of these technologies for small and marginal farmers. Though you have mentioned it's really challenging, and how really with this predictive analysis and post-harvest losses could be minimized so that it is really accessible and adaptable to small and marginal farmers, especially for a country like India.
Let us first take.
Can I quickly ask this question? How do you protect data that are shared by farmers? Obviously the company have access to data, and they could take advantage of this data to improve their system without letting farmer know, right? How do you do that?
Is that excellent presentation and connectivity from so many things. Now, artificial intelligence, you are trying to grab the data which is available or which you can manage. Can you also add to this availability of the data, which is done by the statistics department by various means, so by asking questions? I mean, those kind of things, can they also be brought in here for some advantage?
Now, I think, Ranveer, you can respond.
That's a lot of questions. I don't know if I'll have time to address all of them. But I'd love to continue the conversation. So please, send me a mail. I'm around. Would love to chat. My email is ranveer@microsoft.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. So some of the questions, I'll just aggregate some of them, and I'll try to address them. Some of these questions are open questions. I myself don't know the answer to. So one of the first questions was, how do you replicate it in other state? And around that, similar to that, was around policy as well. So, one of the things we are doing, I'll just give a status update with what we are doing what we did with Maharashtra. We have been talking to various governments at this point. I think Agriculture Development Trust is actually going and presenting to different bodies about our findings. And the World Bank visited as well. So the World Bank team visited Baramati. They are actually having us replicate it in other places too. So it's still early stage because this is all just in the last 5-6 months is where we are making more progress on this. So it's moving forward, but the bigger thing is, I think there has to be a policy around AI for agriculture. I don't know where India is at that. On a central level, it needs to be, everyone needs to adopt that. In the US too, it's happening. That's early too. I'm not saying other countries are ahead, but this is an opportunity for India to get ahead in terms of use of AI in agriculture through the right policies. And policies include the point on data that you mentioned as well. That's why if you look at the last slide that I showed when I was talking about the system, there was an aspect around edge compute. That sits at the KVK or at the farmer level, which is not data that is any compute that is happening there is not going back to the central system. It stays at that level. And that's the way we are designing it end-to-end to make sure that there is data privacy. And this is the same with bigger companies as well. If, so for example, I went to a company and told them, hey, I'm customizing these models for you. They don't want anything in the enterprise to go back and impact the bigger model that's available to everyone. That's the enterprise's IP. And I think we think of farmers as an enterprise as well. They're running their business, so their data has to be secure and make sure that the data doesn't go and leak from what the farmers do.
Follow up on that. if the company don't have access to data, how do they improve their system? So there should be a way to some sort of sharing of data.
So the data is, yes. So the data, there's some amount of central repository which goes everywhere. Like for example, if ICAR has data, that might be useful for all the farmers in particular regions. You might also say, I don't want this data to go to another country. So this kind of stuff is what that policy ensures. But you're completely right. We need to ensure that data is shared at the right granularity to the right stakeholders across the entire value chain, right? Because AI is as good as the data. If we don't have the right data to the right stakeholders, they won't get the right relevant advice. The other question was on standardization of sensors. And this is one place where this is just my take on it, having worked on sensors at different levels, right? I think rather than just building the sensor itself, we have to start thinking of the end-to-end application. What is that sensor going to be used for? And design it with that in context, and that would make sure what level of granularity do you need. If I'm using it for an irrigation application for sprinklers versus as someone is doing spot irrigation or flood irrigation, the sensors that I need, the quality that I need is different. If we keep that end-to-end quality in mind, that I think is more important than coming up with a particular standard. Right now, the way we do it, like that Wi-Fi thing I talked about, there we just compare with the highest end sensors that are out there. So we'll purchase the most expensive sensors, and then we'll say if we use this technique, how much variation do we see for different types? Like for the soil carbon work, we actually went to Dr. Lal's lab. This is a paper that we wrote with him, and we looked at soil samples that they've collected over multiple years. And that's where we then compared to the different soil samples. But I think even though we did that there, my take on sensors broadly is it should be very dependent on the application where it is going to be used. And that is what we should design for. That is thinking about it end to end, as opposed to just a sensor, just a drone, just a satellite. We need to think about the end-to-end application and design it with respect to that. The Bihar thing was very helpful. I would love to follow up on anything in Bihar, anything you're doing there. And Professor Swaminathan Singh of pro-farmer, pro-women, pro-nature, love that. I think the pro-farmer, pro-nature we are doing, pro-women, I think we need to be doing more. What does technology mean for women farmers? So there are many more women farmers. I don't think we've done enough work there. We'll have to see maybe the kind of recommendations it gives. Maybe a lot of the data that exists in agriculture for farming, maybe it has that male bias. I don't know. But this is someone should be doing that study on what does it mean to be pro-women for digital agriculture. And one of the other questions was post-harvest losses. I think post-harvest losses is, AI IoT can help a lot with post-harvest. Like, one of the farmers that we work with in the US, he uses it to monitor the different humidity levels. He uses it to monitor even prices, like, prediction of prices as to when should I sell to make sure that I'm getting the best price and my crop is not going waste, not getting spoiled. So AI can help a lot with that, both monitoring spoilage as well as monitoring the amount of capacity to monitoring prices, what the prices are right now. So I think that's a place where we might not be doing enough in India. In the US, it's more advanced, I think, but that's an opportunity, I think. Because going back to the article Purvi forwarded me today, the one she wrote, you all should read it, by the way. It's just an awesome article which talks about, it's not just about farming more, it's about farming smart and farming so that building all this technology so that farmers benefit, not just the amount of productivity is increased. And there I think AI can play a role, because what the farmer grows and all of that stuff, you could do a much better job if you could do these predictions, right? I think I answered most of the questions, but if not, I'm around to answer more.
Thank you, Ranveer. Really, it was a very exciting talk, having all the innovations related to the future agriculture.
Sir, I have one question, one last.
Madam, now you can interact with him. He is here right now. You can interact with him. Now we are already running short of time, and next program is there, so they are waiting. So he has talked about the use of these all new technology, AI, ML, IoT, and he has very clearly demonstrated through some of the, I think, practical aspect which we have done globally as well as in India also, that how the use of these new technologies are going to reduce the input cost, reducing the total cost for production of any commodity, the quality aspects, the environmental, food, human being, animal, their health, safety, and how the productivity is being enhanced with the lesser input. So that is all I think he has presented, and this in the times to come, definitely this data is I think one of the strongest tool today, and by use of data we can predict the future targets, the future productivity and other things. So that is really going to happen, though it is at a very small scale now. So this is really a real tribute to our honorable professor to make his dream true, and definitely complements with his ideas, which he generally used to have this type of innovative ideas during his various interactions at various fora. I am very highly thankful to Dr. Soumya and her whole team for I think selecting such innovative lectures, and they will definitely will be adding not only to the value of our younger generation but to the older, the conventional generation also. So thank you, Ranveer, for very I think exciting lecture, and my best compliments to you, and my thanks to the organizers for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav. I always say, Ranveer, that agriculture is too important to be left only to agriculturists. So I'm really, really very glad that a computer scientist like you who has come to our rescue. This was really, really exciting. I think India very early on was one of the very few developing countries who invested very heavily into data. And but I think a lot of our public sector data-related focus has been on data collection and not so much on data utilization. So I think it would be really, really nice to have some of these tools to utilize data. And Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, I think there are some very, very interesting areas where, of course, public sector can work, but also including organizations like Swaminathan Foundation can work on some of these things and implementing it on the ground. So thank you very much, Ranveer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the speaker, Mr. Ranveer, and his resourceful speech and learned chair for the insightful session. Hope you all enjoyed the session. We appreciate all the participants for your time and the engagement. Before we conclude, I would like to request Dr. Yadav to distribute the momentum to our speaker, Mr. Ranveer. Also to our chair, Dr. Purvi. I am requesting Dr. Purvi to hand over the memento to Dr. Yadav. So with this session, we close the day one academic session. With a short break, we will again, we will take you the mesmerizing cultural program being performed by the IARA students with this auditorium only. Thank you. We have some more announcement.
Everyone, there's a couple of announcements for the guests who are staying outside. I emphasize the guests who are staying outside, not within the guest house.